You can order award-winning Jonesy Q rubs and sauces at jonesyq.com. Use promo code OOBSHOW if you order $20 or more and receive free shipping. That's jonesyq.com. Promo code OOBSHOW.
WRKS Pickens Jeff coming back from the Whiskey 61 Lounge inside the Bank Plus studio.
And there it comes again.
Mississippi's #1 sports talk show, The Out of Bounds Show with Bo Bounds. Streaming worldwide live on the Out of Bounds radio app and on your radio at ESPN 105.9.
What is that?
What is that? The Zone.
All right, good morning. Welcome in. Let's take that. Thank you. Now let's take it out. There we go. Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Brought to you by, if they have it, the soft shell crab at Kessler Prime. They serve it as both an appetizer and an entree. All right. They just depends on how many more weeks they'll have it. Sometimes it goes into second or third week into September. It's great as an appetizer. You know, drop one there before you dive into a New York strip or a ribeye. But it's a great dish that Scott prepares at Kessler Prime. And I was talking to someone that took 3 people from the Midwest and Northeast out to Kessler Prime within the last week, and they got the soft shell crab, and it blew them away. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, we've taken everything from them. I mean, we do everything better. I mean, that's why the Sun Belt is booming. People want to be here. But the soft shell crab at Kessler Prime, KesslerPrime.com to make a reservation in the Renaissance. Welcome in. Good morning. Thanks for making us your sports and entertainment show of choice. Yes, we will do heavy food, beverage, tailgating, all the things you do at the house, loading up on a boar's head, charcuterie board, whether that's BreezyOaksRanch.com, bacon and pork chops and sausage delivered to your door. You're going to get ready this weekend. Your kitchen's going to be, blowing and going. You'll get your outside area rolling on the patio and the deck, and you're going to lock in to a lot of the games throughout the day. And look, week one is so much better than when I started in this business. Are there as many good games as I would like? No. But we've got enough to have fun, and we know that we're going to get some good games. And I think what everybody's looking for is games that go down, to the final couple of minutes and see how it plays out. And I don't know if that's LSU at UCLA, Bama, Miami, Georgia, Clemson, Wisconsin, Penn State. I don't think it's Ole Miss, Louisville. And then there's a few others to keep an eye on. But week one is 100 times better than it used to be. I think where we're going is even better games, all throughout the season. It's I don't expect a big crowd in Starkville. 40,000. So the stadiums in Starkville and Oxford hold around 63 and change. We'll round it up. We'll say 64,000 when it's rocking and jamming and you're winning and you're hosting Auburn or LSU, a big game. You're going to go 63,000 plus. We've had crazy numbers on StubHub and SeatGeek within the last 7 years when it comes to Mississippi State and Ole Miss game. You never thought that would happen, did you? Game tickets would be $300, $500, $600, which is a good thing. The demand will be there if you are winning. Of course, I couldn't believe some of the numbers on baseball tickets this year, right? When they built the new Dudy Noble Field, I thought, I never forget this. This goes to show you what I know. This was years ago. I don't remember what year, but I was talking to Scott Strickland. I said, do you think you're building the stadium too big? And I understand it's only a few weekends out of the year, but good grief. You get on SeatGeek or StubHub and you're like, what in the world? It's the same thing at Ole Miss. On big weekends, if you're winning, it can get a little dicey. which is a good thing. I mean, you want the that supply-demand deal to be at the top as far as pricing and demand. But, Blake, I'm thinking 40,000 people somewhere in there. Now, that could go to 42 to 30, whatever. But I just think, well, there's a lot going on right now in the country and in the world with the virus. I think you got it's La Tech. Mm-hmm. And 10 years ago, if you were good or people were excited, I think there's still plenty of people excited around Leach. I know Lane Train's got a little more fire behind him, which, I mean, there was one game difference last year. It's really incredible. There was one game difference, but because Ole Miss moved the ball, I mean, they were awful on defense. Awful. Atrocious. But because they moved the ball and they were exciting to watch and they scored points, you get the feeling in the state that there is this big gap. There's not. I mean, there's not a dime's worth of difference. I give Ole Miss as a team a slight edge because what we talk about all the time, QB and offensive skill talent. But Lane won one more game than Leach. Leach dressed out 46 to 50 players for half the season, or a little bit more than that. Played a true freshman QB and lost his best player in Kylan Hill. And he actually beat a top 5 recruiter, and Ole Miss didn't beat anybody. But when you're exciting, again, it's all about our mindset and our eyeballs and so on. When you're exciting, when your offense is driven by explosive plays, and when you score touchdowns, baby, and especially when you can score from – here's where Ole Miss has the advantage on Mississippi State. It's pretty simple. It's pretty simple. If they played 10 times, Ole Miss would win more, okay? And it may be 6-4, but whatever. Here's where Ole Miss has the advantage. Corral can go the line of scrimmage on their 40, and they can score. That y'all can get bogged down in all the other stuff. Oh, my gosh, the Ole Miss defense isn't any good, which isn't near as big a deal today as it was 10, 30 years ago. But the bottom line is when Corral and them break, or if they even huddle, but when they go the line of scrimmage on their 40-yard line, they can score from there. That's the bottom line. But more importantly, when they're on your 30, they're dangerous. I mean, if you think they're dangerous 60 out, when they're on your 30-yard line, they may as well be on your 5. That's the difference. Because they start moving dudes around, and in college football, there's just not enough good DBs.
Yep.
It's kind of like in high school football. Dude, if you can go 4 wide and you actually understand how to coach the passing game and the quarterback position, they can't cover you. Most Friday nights. 95% of the time. They're not going to have the 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. It's not going to happen to cover you. And if you'll do crossing routes underneath, as Leach talks about, and swing your sword, ain't no way. No way in high school that people can cover that. It's just too much for either DBs, safeties that are coming up, or if a linebacker has to take the slot. It's just not going to happen. But anyway, back to what the bottom line is on Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Look, they'll play at the end of the year. It's going to be awesome and fun. But and there's still people on the text line getting bogged down on the defense. Guys, I'm trying to tell you, the game has changed. I don't know what else to tell you. I remember when we all played and everything was in a phone booth and everything was tackle to tackle and everything was between the hash marks and so on. But it's not the same game. But anyway, the point is, and here's where Ole Miss dangerous on their 40, no doubt. But they are so dangerous at the 30-yard line and the 35-yard line and the 27-yard line that it's just – and they're almost better. Freeze was like this too, Blake. They're almost better at about the 17 to 20-yard line than they are at the 5. Because the more space you give them to run Sanders and Drummond and Ely and John Rice in a couple of different directions on all these fun little pass patterns, the tougher it is for your linebacker with a head on a swivel or a strong safety to know what in the world is going on. The Farm Bureau Insurance call-in line is 601-995-1059. David Johnson, Rebels 247, coming up next on the Modelo guest line. Ole Miss Louisville, Monday night.
You're listening to the Out of Bounds Show podcast, presented by Independent Roofing Systems. If you want it done right the first time, visit Independent Roofing Systems today.
All right, cool. Out of Bounds, 105.9 The Zone, brought to you by Superior Foundation. For all your foundation repairs, Todd Sandridge, Trey Pace at Superior Foundation will take care of your home. Superior.ms, foundation issues are miserable, and that's why you want to go with Superior Foundation. Show is also brought to you by Edwin Watts Golf Shop on County Line Road. Do we have David? Awesome. All right. We're going to go to the Modelo guest line. Welcome in David Johnson, Rebels 247, Ole Miss and Louisville, Monday night, Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz Georgia Dome. Ole Miss a 9.5, 10-point favorite. I expect them to cover. However, I think the big question now, and we usually lead with offense with David, but if Ole Miss wants to go 9-3-ish, they're going to have to play a little bit of defense along the way. I know the game is is now an offensive-driven, explosive play-driven game. However, you're going to have to get a few stops in critical moments throughout the year against conference opponents. David, good morning. Tell me, now that we've gone through 30 days of practice, how much better or the same this Ole Miss defense is.
Yeah, that's the enigma, right? Bo, I wish I could tell you. I mean, I've seen things at practice that suggest they're going to be better. Obviously, the personnel moves they've made over the offseason suggest they're going to be better. But, to be honest with you, the one live scrimmage that we were able to watch, they didn't look better. Now, you've got to take into account they're going up against, I think, what we would all agree is one of the country's best offensive attacks. So, you've got to factor that in. I'm just excited to see them line up against somebody else, someone they're not necessarily familiar with, and see what happens. But you're exactly right in your assessment. I mean, this has the makings of being an incredible season in Oxford. But the defense is going to have to be, middle of the pack. If they're middle of the pack, this is a team that can win 9 games. Mm-hmm. Maybe even more than that. But if they're not, you got to be honest. You could see a replay of kind of how last year played out, where they're going to have to win their share of shootouts, and they won't win all of those. So, I'm excited about Monday night. I think we know what the offense is going to do. We do not know what the defense is going to do. And they're going to play against a team that is very well coached. I think that Louisville staff is really, really good. They've got an athletic quarterback capable of breaking out and getting to the second level of that defense. Will tackling problems still plague the Rebels? All of that's on the line Monday night. And I think that's what makes this a very intriguing matchup.
He is David Johnson, Ole Miss insider. Rebels 247 Sports. He joins us on the Modelo guest line. Ole Miss Louisville Monday night. As David said, Scott Satterfield is a heck of a coach. Now, does Ole Miss have more talent? Absolutely. But Satterfield's guys, as David is alluding to, will be well coached. Satterfield is from Appalachian State. They play football at the highest level. Discipline, all that. X's and O's. They know what they're doing. David, let's stay on the defensive side of the football. Where, as far as depth, biggest concern for you?
Yeah, I think the biggest concern with depth is on the defensive line. And it's not that there aren't bodies there, Bo. It's the fact you don't know what those guys are going to do. They've brought in Jamon Gordon and Isaiah Iden, and you and I have both talked about those guys ad nauseum, two junior college defensive tackles that can make a difference. However, we really don't know the status of Tavius Robinson, a defensive end. Lane doesn't discuss injuries. Tavius has missed an awful lot of practice time in the preseason. And, when asked about him, his response is there have been no significant injuries to anyone expected to have substantial playing time. Robinson certainly falls into that category. But we haven't seen him on the field a whole lot. So, we'll see what that looks like Monday night. But, that's where the depth concern is. I think there's plenty of depth on the back end. I think there's plenty of depth at linebacker. But on the defensive line, to be successful in the SEC, you better have a quality 8 to 9 man rotation out there. And it's not that the first 4 guys aren't SEC quality, but you wonder what that rotational depth is going to look like as the season starts, as it plays out, and the level of quality you get when you've got to have your 3 defensive tackle in there. So, that's where I would say the depth concerns lie on the defensive side of the ball.
Okay. David Johnson on the Out of Bounds show. Ole Miss and Louisville. Monday night, Labor Day. It's going to be a lot of fun. Mercedes-Benz Georgia Dome. Ole Miss about a 9.5, 10-point favorite. Over-under in that game is 75.5. Holy smokes. Wow.
I think that's about right. I really do. Yeah. I think you're going to see a shootout. If I had to predict how this one plays out, I think it's going to be a ball game for 2.5, 3 quarters. I believe, as you mentioned, Ole Miss probably has better players. And, I think as the game wears on, that's going to show. I think Louisville's going to have a difficult time slowing down this Ole Miss offense, and I think Ole Miss will pull away in the end. But, I don't think it's going to be a cakewalk. Not at all. I think this is going to be a fight, and we'll see what happens Monday night. Man, I am so excited about getting this thing started. I will say this: the offense, as far as fall camps go, I've never seen an offense go through a fall camp as smoothly as this one did. Matt Corral's got total control of this offense. I've seen him make some crazy throws. I mean, just unbelievable throws. I think Lane Kiffin described his arm talent as insane. And Kiffin would certainly know about quarterback arm talent. His receivers room, I really think they're stocked well. There's a lot of talent there. Everybody's been, concerned about the slot receiver position, which was so productive for Ole Miss last year. But I'm telling you, when you've got a combination of John Rice Plumlee, of Jerrion Ely, of Henry Parrish, of Jacour Pearson, that will be rotating in and out at that slot. And each one of those guys has a little bit of different wiggle about them. I don't think they're going to fall off any in production at the slot position. The position no one's talking about that I think everybody ought to have an eye on is right tackle, where Royce Newman was last year, who, by the way, this weekend graded out with the highest grade of any NFL offensive lineman, period. Not just rookies, but period this weekend.
I saw that.
You're going to miss that guy. Now, Jeremy James has moved from right guard out to right tackle. And James is a very talented player. I think he's the most talented offensive lineman on the Ole Miss roster. And I think he's going to be able to fill that void nicely. But, I'd watch that position because, nobody watches offensive line play. They watch the ball when they watch games. And that's going to be an area of concern. I think Jeremy is up to the task to handling that. And then depth on the offensive side, your concern is at the tackles on the edge. There's not a lot of edge depth. So, they need to stay healthy.
That was great. David Johnson, Rebels 247, Ole Miss Spirit 247 Sports. David joined us on the Modelo guest line. David, enjoy week 1. We'll talk to you next week. Appreciate it.
All right, Bo. Appreciate you having me on, man. Thank you.
David Johnson, Rebels 247 on the Modelo guest line. You're listening to WRKS 105.9 The Zone, ESPN. Don't forget, Friday Night Lights is powered by MRA Football on ESPN 105.9 The Zone, Bar 2 at 9:30.
The Out of Bounds Show podcast is brought to you by Kessler Prime. For the best steaks in Mississippi, visit Kessler Prime in the Renaissance.
Some really, really crazy numbers on this Ole Miss offense from last year. And again, they didn't play anybody in G5. If you think that Matt Corral and that crew feasted on some defenses, just wait. What do you think Austin P is going to do to their numbers, right? Or even Louisville, who recruits in the 40s. I mean, you don't play that many teams. You know, Ole Miss and Mississippi State don't play that many teams in the conference that recruit in the 40s. In fact, I think the only team outside the top 40, because I think Missouri is just inside the top 40, so I think the only team is Vandy. Everybody else is in the top 40. In fact, Missouri may be in the top 35. We'll have to look at that. Will, if you get a chance, let me know what 247 Composite tells you. But yeah, I mean, Ole Miss plays a team that's, you know, whatever. In Louisville's, I think, in the 40s. They may be in the 50s. But they didn't get to run their offense against non-conference G5 teams last year. Blake just dropped this on me. How about this? Percentage of drive in last year, 2020. Percentage of drives that ended in touchdowns. Ole Miss, 9th in the country. How about this? 8th in offensive efficiency numbers, scoring efficiency. That's ridiculous. How about this? Alabama, okay, the Alabama Crimson Tide, with all those players that they had, right? Najee Harris, Mac Jones, who's somehow starting in the NFL, Devontae Smith, all those receivers, loaded. Alabama offensive yards per play. Hang in there with me. Alabama offensive yards per play last year, 8.33. Ole Miss, 7 yards per play.
Whew.
That is that's why when you're thinking about Ole Miss, and I guess we do this as sports fans because we're guys in sports and women, you know, we get dumb real quick. You're a smart guy, you're a sharp guy, and then either a sports conversation or something happens in your world with a female and your IQ drops 67.4 points, right, on the spot. But when you think about Ole Miss, you think about what they are on the 30-yard line, on your 30, and how dangerous they are. Then you take your team and you think about how dangerous you are on the 30-yard line. And then just scale it on a scale of 1 to 10. Just make it simple. We overthink it in everything in sport. We get bogged down in stuff that doesn't mean anything. But we chase that rabbit when, you know, if we keep the main thing, the main thing. My question is, you know, the great quote during the break, if you can score, you're in any game. I know it's simple. I know we want to make it more complicated. But in football today, the way that it's coached and the way that these coaches are allowing their quarterbacks and their offensive skill talent to go out there and have some fun and create space and do fun things through the running game and the passing game, if you can score, you're in any game.
Yep.
That's Ole Miss.
Yep.
If you can score, you're in any game.
Because you don't feel like the game's over at halftime if you're down 14.
Exactly. And that's what Cohen has said about what he's trying to do. For 100 years, Mississippi State played for a big chunk of 100 years, Mississippi State played really, really, really good defense. At times, they played unbelievable defense. But you know what they did the overwhelming majority of the time? Even when the game was played in a phone booth, they lost. Will and Blake sent me the numbers today. I mean, they're 14-10 in bowl games. If Dan Mullen Cheryl/Mullen doesn't arrive, you don't have any bowl. You didn't ever go to bowl games.
No.
So my point is, even all that, we're tough. D.D. Lewis is making 24 tackles a game. Not taking anything away from D.D. Lewis. I've smoked cigars with him. He is a hell of a man. And he's got 2 Super Bowl rings, so he's a cool dude. But the one thing is, for 100 years you played that way, even when football was in a phone booth and it didn't work. So if you can score at will, you're in any game, and that's where Ole Miss is. And that's where even though Mississippi State has gone on this, guess we're going on about 11 years. Dan flipped it after year 1, 2010. They go to the Gator Bowl, beat Michigan. Since then, they've been going to bowl games either every year but one. Blake, you can help me there. But I don't remember what year last year was as far as bowl games in a row. But the deal that Cohen is trying to do is modernize your football program like he did the baseball program. Before you jump at me on the Mississippi Ag text line, which you can bring it, Cohen modernized the baseball program as a coach. The baseball program prior to his arrival was run like it was 1976. So he modernized the baseball program. And you just won a national championship. You've been to 4 or 5 straight super regionals, and you've been to Omaha the last 3 years, I think.
Yep.
But you just won the national championship in a major sport. Never been done. State of Mississippi. Incredible. But what Cohen sees is if you can't throw the ball down the field and you can't generate explosive plays, well, then there's really no point in putting on the uniform and rolling the ball out.
Yep.
It's just the way it is. And yet you still get this pushback right now from Mississippi State. But got to run the ball. Got to run the ball. Yes, you'll be able to run the ball. First, you've got to be super, super efficient and be able to throw the ball at a high level. The day of 15-play drives is over. It's over. And if you're not generating 20 explosive plays or 20-plus yards,
yep.
It's pretty simple at the end of the week, the game, or at the end of the season, because I'm looking at Ole Miss's explosive plays last year. It's pretty simple. It just flipping the field in one play is a game changer.
Well, how did Freeze beat Bama twice and almost have him beat a third time?
Explosive plays.
It's explosive plays.
Yeah, it was a spread vertical passing game to Adebojo and to Core and to Evan Ingram and Treadwell a little bit. Treadwell wasn't as much of a deep dude. I mean, he was obviously amazing at the college level. But what Freeze did is he's a lot like, these guys we talk about. He can scheme it, and he put an enormous amount of pressure on Al. And he didn't play conservative football against – again, we talk about it all the time. You have to go get it from Bama. They are not going to give it to you. One of the best college football games that I have watched in the last 10 years is 2 years ago, the Iron Bowl, Bama and Auburn. Auburn eventually won the game. Remember the back and forth? Unbelievable football game. Explosive plays, plenty of touchdowns, and so on. What Auburn had to do to finish Alabama off was almost excruciating to watch, and I didn't give a damn who won the game. I was just entertained because it's one of the best football games that I've watched in the last 20 years. What Deshaun Watson had to do at Clemson to beat Bama? It took them 59 minutes and 59 seconds to throw a rub route off of another receiver to Hunter Renfrow to beat them. Bama will not go away. You have to drive the stake through their heart, take it out, and then do it again and again. They're not going away.
Look at LSU. I mean, stuck in somewhat of a mediocrity for a while in terms of LSU standards, and the one breakout season, really the most dominant season in their program history. What are they doing? They're running explosive plays. It's Joe Burrow slicing and dicing for 15, 20, 30, 40 yards.
Man,
not
Burrow
handing
was
it
so
off.
good.
Yeah, I mean,
how good was he that day in Tuscaloosa against Bama? And by the way, Blake, they wouldn't go away that day.
No, I think it ended up being like a 14-point game, but it was bad. I mean, Bama was right there. You knew if LSU made a mistake, Alabama would take advantage of it, right?
Yeah,
and that's the beauty. Tom Luganville said this, and I think you've been speaking to it. We know there's talent gaps galore in college football, way bigger than NFL or anything like that. So when you're under-talented, and I don't mean Georgia to Alabama, because that's not, talking about Georgia to Ole Miss, Georgia to Mississippi State, right? Like, when you're under-talented, what's the one equalizer? It's offense. Today's the 14th year anniversary of Appalachian State beating Michigan. You know what they were running? A spread offense.
Right.
Nobody was saying Appalachian State had talent to beat Michigan. Why did they beat them? The equalizer is explosive offense because you don't have to do it 10 times in a row. You just got to do it once or twice a drive.
Right. No, I mean, Jerry Moore, the legendary coach at Appalachian State, as you said, was running the spread. And at that time, Rich Rod was running the spread, Urban Meyer. Now, this eventually evolved into what Baylor did. The air raid was being run by Leach at Texas Tech. He's beaten Texas. See, at that time where Blake's just referencing App State and Michigan, I want you to go back to that time in college football. And I want you to think about what Mike Leach was doing at Texas Tech. He was beating teams that were better than him.
By like 30 or 40 recruiting spots.
Okay, right. And Leach was doing that because the air raid, when run right, is filthy. By the way, guess what else he was doing? You can go back and check. He was also running the football during that time.
Yep.
He had several running backs. I mean, I'm talking about two at a time. One would have 600 and change, the other would have 700 and change. And then they'd also have 600, 700 and change in receiving yards. But my point in all that is we were talking about Bama and putting them away and what it takes. Johnny Manziel, Bo Wallace, Chad Kelly, Deshaun Watson. Auburn somehow was able to do it a couple of times, really without premier QBs, but Gus coached to win. He didn't necessarily do that throughout the season, but Gus Malzahn coached to win against Alabama, and he was able to get his team ready to beat the Alabama Crimson Tide because they had some epic battles, he and Saban. And that's the one thing about Auburn. Even though they haven't been as fine-tuned as Ole Miss and some of these other programs offensively, that is one of the toughest programs, if not the toughest, in college football because they just have to be to survive with the big monster in their state of the Alabama Crimson Tide. Hey, the Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, ESPN, is brought to you by Kinetic Staffing. Choose the winner among your staffing firms. Find the talent you need to achieve excellence in your company. Kinetic Staffing can do that. They will find the people that you need on your team, legal and professional and otherwise. Leverage their extensive talent network and build your talent bench with Kinetic Staffing. KineticStaffing.com. Alan Lang and the team at Kinetic Staffing will add talent to your roster in business. KineticStaffing.com. And they've done it for law firms, CPA firms, big-time companies in the state of Mississippi and around the Southeast. Add talent to your roster through Kinetic Staffing, KineticStaffing.com. All right, Blake, we're going to have Bar 2 at 9:30 on the Modelo guest line. Blake wants to share. We're going to go over this real quick. This is really, really cool. We're going to do a bunch of fun giveaways through, half a dozen plus of our partners this football season, which we're pumped about. One of them is Fleetway Market. And we've talked about how we want you to fuel up at Fleetway. Fuel up at Fleetway. Obviously, their service station in Gluckstadt is like the Taj Mahal.
It's incredible.
It's like the Ritz-Carlton. It's incredible.
It doesn't look. Yeah, it's
the food, everything they have. They've got a great selection of craft beer and import beer and Coors Light and so on. But we're giving away this best text today. So if you've already texted, you're in. But you've still got an hour and 15 minutes to say hello to us. On the Mississippi Ag text line, best text, you will win ribs for 6 people, plus 2 sides, baked beans and mac and cheese, plus cornbread. Now, that's a feast for Saturday, right? I mean,
yes,
you're
sir.
thinking about a spread to go along with some of the other things that you're doing. And so that is the first giveaway that we're doing through Fleetway Market. You can find them, 22 locations. There's one on 51 in Madison over there by MRA. That's the one that I hit, get the boat gas and all that. They've got the mega store, I guess is a good way to put it, out in Gluckstadt and many other stores down to McGee and so on. Fuel up at Fleetway Market. We've got a giveaway for 6 people. Ribs, 2 sides, and cornbread. The 2 sides are mac and cheese and baked beans. Fuel up at Fleetway Market. And that is via the Mississippi Ag text line, which is 601-885-3776. 885-3776 for 6 people. Ribs, 2 sides, and corporate. Their food is amazing.
It's It's not gas
at the
station
Market
food.
Cafe.
Yeah, it's like high quality Southern barbecue.
So, yeah, it's delicious. I went over there and smashed several things last week. I was in heaven. And I didn't really realize how extensive their menu is, but it's really good. Brisket and barbecue sandwiches and their chicken strips were delicious and so on. So fuel up at Fleetway Market. Our giveaway is for 6 people, ribs, 2 sides, and cornbread. And you enter via the Mississippi Ag text line. Best text today, you go home with some delicious food for week 1 of game day weekend.
Somebody's going to be a hero walking into their tailgate with that.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, so something else that we were talking about this week is the Bishop Sycamore High School that is a fake high school that they claimed was a high school in Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, my gosh.
Okay? We have enough go on in Ohio in elections, but, I mean, all the way back to, you could read JFK's book, which is a great book, by the way. But the point is, and Columbus, Ohio is a cool town. I've been to Ohio State. It's really, really, really nice. But Bishop Sycamore played in a game over the weekend on ESPN against IMG. Most of you know what IMG is down in Bradenton, Florida, is this unbelievable, athletic school, charter school, whatever it is. And they have the best of the best in every sport. And you live there, and they produce great teams from tennis, soccer to football and basketball. And they played on ESPN. And Bishop Sycamore is not a high school. They faked it. That's incredible. I can understand that happening in 1978 when people didn't know any better. Nobody knew. The paper and Walter Cronkite told you. And again, that was indoctrination there, but that's all you had, okay? Or you had to go to a landline and call, Merline in the next county over. But holy moly, in this day and time, Blake, the fact that Bishop Sycamore was, and that IMG knew, Blake.
That's the crazy part. Like, that's so
is
weird.
ESPN? I'm sorry I want to get your thoughts, but Blake, here's my question. Is ESPN going to be ticked at IMG considering how much they have broadcast IMG teams, televised IMG teams over the years, knowing that they know that IMG had to know that Bishop Sycamore was not a real high school?
Yeah, and to the point of not being a real high school, that they were playing players who had already come out of JUCO programs. Like adults. That's insane. How do you get away with that in 2021? And IMG, is it irresponsible of IMG to go ahead and play the game?
Well, I don't know, But I don't know how. I do know that ESPN contracts all this out to other companies.
Yeah, a third-party organizer.
But still, man, it's bad and it's embarrassing, and some people are so for our listeners, I know most of you have heard about this. Bishop Sycamore played on TV this weekend against IMG, but there is no Bishop Sycamore.
Nope.
It's not a high school.
Head coach.
It's a select team.
Yeah, and head coach supposedly had an arrest warrant out for him in Ohio, an active one. I mean, the story gets crazier and crazier the more you dive into it.
And it will only get even more crazy, right?
Yeah, I think more and more.
As it continues to unfold.
Yeah, more and more. And you're seeing, of course, the internet take advantage of the stupidity and the hilariousness of the whole situation with all the memes. And now people are saying Cam Newton is the new starter at Bishop Sycamore. And, I mean, just
I saw that.
All kinds of crazy stuff. But, yeah, it is – what's crazy is there are people who actually were tricked, like who had good intentions, right? Like families who didn't realize they were being tricked. And that's the part that you hate. But the fact that was able to play on national television before it unraveled, I mean, that, like you said, that doesn't happen in the internet era.
No, it doesn't. Insane. There is no Bishop Sycamore, but they played IMG over the weekend.
Their website is down for maintenance right now.
Yeah, it's down for maintenance.
Yeah, right.
They're playing JUCO players against high school players and still getting blown out.
Incredible.
Unreal. All right, another story. Gardner Minshew. Oh, man, the gift that keeps on giving. Quarterbacks in the NFL and college. I love it. Out of bounds, 105.9 The Zone, WRKS. Blake, so Minshew has been with the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're going to start Trevor Lawrence. That makes sense. Now Gardner Minshew is traded to the Philadelphia Eagles. What do you think? When is Gardner Minshew named the starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles?
By week 4?
Okay.
Week 5?
I was thinking week 2, but okay.
Well, but yeah, I mean, you and I, we're operating under reason and logic. That's not always what the NFL does. And so they're going to give Hurts an opportunity to play, but I think Minshew was able to win games in Jacksonville. I don't think Jalen Hurts could have done anything in Jacksonville, right? It's the age-old, like, if you flop
Neither
them.
could Tua.
Yeah. So I'm with you. I think Gardner will need a little bit of time to get into the system and learn everything and get some chemistry down. But by week 4, I would not be shocked if he's the starting quarterback in Philadelphia, 100%.
All right, I'm going under on that, okay?
Okay.
So I'm going under week 4. You've got it at week 4. I'm going to go under. Gardner Minshew is the starting quarterback for the Philadelphia Eagles. So I want to let you know, if that happens, that in the NFC East, we will have Dak Prescott, who went to Mississippi State, and we will have Gardner Minshew, who's from the state of Mississippi, as 2 of the 4 starting quarterbacks in the NFC East. And so I think, like Blake, I think it will happen sooner than later. Gardner Minshew will be the starting quarterback for your Philadelphia Eagles, and Fletcher Cox at the Eagles before week 4. The Out of Bounds Show, 105.9 The Zone, is brought to you by Kinetic Staffing. Let them add talent to your roster in your company. KineticStaffing.com. That's KineticStaffing.com.